Brazil has won the World Cup 5 times. Germany 4 times. Even tiny Uruguay, a country with fewer people than Chicago, has won it twice. The United States? 0. Not once in over 90 years of trying. And here's the uncomfortable part. Even hosting the tournament in 2026, with home crowds and home advantage, most experts still don't think the US wins it. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why and what would actually need to change. Let's start with the obvious question. How is this possible? America dominates almost every sport it takes seriously. Basketball, American football, baseball, even Olympic swimming and track. The U.S. has more elite athletes, more money, and more sports infrastructure than almost any country on Earth. So why does football keep slipping through its fingers? Here's the first big reason, and it's bigger than most people realize. Talent pipeline. In countries like Brazil, Argentina, France, and England, football isn't just a sport, it's the default childhood activity. Kids play it in the street, in tiny dirt lots, in schoolyards, with zero equipment needed besides a ball. In the US, football competes directly against basketball, baseball, and American football for the same athletic kids, and historically, football loses that competition. The best athletic talent in America gets funneled into other sports first. Think about it this way. Imagine if Brazil's most talented athletes spent their childhood playing baseball instead of football. Their national team wouldn't be nearly as dominant. That's essentially what's happened to the US in reverse for decades. Here's a stat that surprises people. The US actually has more registered football players than almost any country in the world, somewhere around 8 million. But quality isn't the same as quantity at the highest level. Brazil has a fraction of that number, but their development system is brutally specialized from a young age. This brings us to the second reason, youth development structure. In most football powerhouse countries, talented kids get identified early and funneled into professional academies by age 10, sometimes younger. These academies train kids every single day, multiple hours, focused entirely on technical skill. In the US, youth football is dominated by a pay-to-play club system. Parents often pay thousands of dollars a year just for their kid to play competitively. Here's the uncomfortable truth. This means American football talent gets filtered by family income, not just raw ability. A kid with incredible potential but no financial access to elite clubs can simply fall through the cracks. Compare that to Brazil, where some of the greatest players in history grew up with literally nothing, playing barefoot on dirt fields, discovered purely through talent, not paid access. Now here's where it gets interesting. Even when the US does produce talented players, there's a third problem. Where do they actually play professionally? Major League Soccer, the top American league, is still significantly weaker than Europe's top leagues like the Premier League, La Liga, or the Bundesliga. The best American players almost always have to leave the country and prove themselves in Europe to actually develop into world-class talent. This creates a strange cycle. Young American talent leaves the country early, sometimes before they're fully developed, just to get real competition. Meanwhile, countries like France or Spain have multiple world-class leagues domestically, meaning their best players develop against elite competition from childhood through adulthood without ever needing to leave home. Let's talk about something most Americans don't realize. Football culture runs differently outside the US. In Brazil, Argentina, England, and most of Europe, football isn't just entertainment, it's identity. Cities split loyalty by club. Families pass down team allegiance for generations. Losing a crucial match can genuinely affect a country's mood for days. That obsessive cultural weight creates intense pressure, but it also creates intense passion, investment, and talent development at every level of society. In the US, football is one of many sports competing for attention. It's growing, it's popular, but it's still fighting for cultural dominance against the NFL, NBA, and MLB. And dominance matters because cultural obsession is what funds academies, fills stadiums, and produces generational talent. Here's a surprising comparison. The US population is over 330 million people. Argentina's population is roughly 45 million, yet Argentina has won 3 World Cups, including the most recent one in 2022. Population size clearly isn't the deciding factor. Football obsession is. Now let's talk about the 2026 tournament specifically. The U.S. is co-hosting alongside Mexico and Canada, which gives them home advantage, a massive home crowd, and a serious confidence boost. Hosting nations historically perform better than expected simply because of crowd energy and reduced travel fatigue. But here's the brutal truth. Home advantage helps, but it doesn't fix decades of structural gaps overnight. The U.S. men's national team has shown real progress recently. Young, talented players are emerging, several playing in competitive European leagues. There's genuine optimism. But realistically, teams like France, Brazil, Argentina, and England still have deeper talent pools, stronger domestic development systems, and far more World Cup experience at the highest pressure moments. Here's an interesting psychological factor. Teams that have won before know how to handle elimination pressure. Penalty shootouts, sudden death knockout rounds, the suffocating tension of a World Cup final. Experience matters in those moments, and the U.S. simply hasn't accumulated that pressure-tested knowledge yet. So is it impossible for the U.S. to win in 2026? No, tournaments are chaotic. Upsets happen constantly. A hot streak, a lucky bracket, an inspired young goalkeeper. Anything can shift momentum. But probability-wise, most analysts still expect a team with deeper football infrastructure to lift the trophy. Let's bring this all together. The U.S. lacks the talent pipeline depth, the unified youth development system, and the domestic league strength that traditional football powerhouses have built over generations. Cultural obsession with football is growing, but it's still competing against deeply established American sports. Hosting in 2026 helps, but it's not a magic fix for structural gaps built over decades. Here's the one thing to remember. Winning a World Cup isn't about population, money, or even raw athletic talent. It's about decades of cultural obsession, specialized development, and pressure-tested experience all compounding together. The U.S. is closing that gap slowly, but closing a generational gap doesn't happen in just one tournament. If this finally explained why the U.S. has never won a World Cup, subscribe, because we're breaking down everything else you need to know before the 2026 tournament kicks off.